everyone, this is PJ here with CLK Supplies, and I'm really excited to introduce you to our guest today. His name is Jeff Moss, aka Moss Man, and I'm really excited to have him tell his story about how he got into locksmithing. So let me go ahead and bring him in here. Moss Man, Jeff, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, we've been doing a lot of stories lately, talking about how different locksmiths have become locksmiths. And I'm really excited to share your story today and learn even more than I currently know. So if you can just start us off, like, where are you located in the country and what were you doing before you became a locksmith?
So I am in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. Before I was a locksmith, I worked in IT for 6 years at 2 different companies. And then, in high school, I worked at a drugstore and 2 different hardware stores, which is sort of how it all got started. Working at a hardware store, never thought about keys before, but when you start cutting keys, you get interested in how they work and things. The first place I worked, can you show me how to rekey a lock? And he didn't want to for whatever reason. I'm like 16 years old. And I left that place, went to go work at another store. He showed me how to rekey quick set locks. And, 15 years later, they refer us 2 people every day to where I work. So, it all works out. You show somebody, you give them an opportunity to learn how something functions. And, so I've always been mechanical since I was a little kid. My uncle was a plumber for many years. I always had tools since I was, since I could walk. My first toys were plastic tools and then real tools. So I've always been, nothing was safe from being taken apart when I was a kid. Although I have gotten better. Normally I don't have as many screws left over when I'm done.
Okay.
Unless it's, maybe on a Honda ignition, we might have a couple things left out, but.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious. Like, so you were in IT before becoming a locksmith, and we've had Dawn on and others in the comments even on that video. There's a decent amount of people that have transitioned from IT to locksmithing, and I find it kind of weird. Like I don't find it I don't expect it, I guess was a better word. Like, do you have any gut feelings as to why?
I can explain my journey. So besides the hardware store thing, I worked in my college student union, and I had never paid attention or known necessarily what a best key was before. We had best keys for the building, master key system, all that stuff, and it sort of interested me. How does it all work? What's this figure 8 business? I see all the same core and all these different types of things. I start looking at stuff. One night I discovered some lockpicking channels on YouTube, and this was probably 2009 or 10. So The Locksport thing was really just getting started. I ordered a set of picks online, went to Walmart and bought the nicest $5 master padlock clone they had. Picked it open, whatever. Bought locks here and there while I was in school. Got some old stuff, from campus, whatever things they didn't need. Discovered that I was better at taking them apart than I was picking them. Started collecting when I came home from college and got my first job, working in IT for a manufacturing company. So I was around tools and things like that. And I was able to get, some custom stuff made that, you wouldn't have been able to afford a cylinder wrench for best. I have it here. A guy made it for me, stuff like that. So I think, the Locksport thing, I got into all the forums, all the different stuff. Almost everybody that I've met in Locksport is into InfoSec, information security, because you have to keep your physical stuff and your electronics and all that stuff safe. Because if somebody can get in and get into your server, they can. My high school Cisco networking teacher, was everybody learns how to reset a password on a router. You have to have physical access to that thing to hit the button, whatever. If they can't get in, so that sort of thing. I think it's, all the different levels of security. Somebody can't just walk in your building and plug something into your network. And, you hear things like that. People that do consulting, and they're sent into a place to try to get in, and they, so I think that really, goes along with it. Something as simple as keeping your server room on its own standalone system that nobody has a master key for unless it's an emergency, and you see, we do, things with different institutions where there's various layers of master keying. And so, yeah, I think it, having been at, I joined a local Locksport group and I help run the meetings and stuff. We haven't done much lately, but we've presented at some local, I don't do it with my locksmith hat on per se. But we're showing people how the stuff works. I get it. I show it from that angle, not here's how to break into things. Rule number one, we explain, you don't pick anything you don't own. You don't pick anything that you rely on because you will break it,
Yeah.
And, I've met a lot of interesting people that are way better at picking locks than I am, even though I work with them all day. There's a lot of people that, I can pick locks. I want to be a locksmith. Well, realistically, that's a very small part. Even with me just in the shop, I could go a couple days without having to pick anything. There's so many other things that we do. Even our guys in the field don't do a ton of lockouts. They're doing hardware installations and cameras and card access and things like that. So yeah, it's important, but if you come from the IT background of troubleshooting, customer service, problem solving, that I think those types of skills come along are very helpful, and critical to doing what I do. We have a retail counter. I'm dealing with people all day. I'm trying to solve their problems. I'm trying to figure out what they need. Sometimes all I have is a drawing on the back of a napkin. It's much better with camera phones, but it's the same thing with IT. You're trying to diagnose their issue over the phone. You can't necessarily see it. Sometimes you can walk over to the next office and figure out what the problem is. But at the end of the day, it's, helping the customer, and that's key, pun intended.
Yeah, good stuff. So, I'm curious on your perspective. So tell me if I'm getting this right. So you were in IT, you became interested in locks, then you started doing some Locksport stuff, and then eventually transitioned into being a locksmith.
Yes.
So I want to pause for a minute and talk about an issue that doesn't get talked about too much, but I think it'd be really fun to kind of get your perspective. And that is with like the Locksport community and then the locksmithing community. Over the years, there's been a lot of kind of tension between, the two groups. And as I think there's a lot of ways to look at it, but I'm really curious from your perspective, being a part of the Locksport community, which actually brought you into locksmithing. What do you feel the proper way to view from being a locksmith? How should you be viewing the Locksport community?
It's hard to say. On one hand, I never went into any locksmiths and said, hi, I pick locks and I want to buy locks. I always said I'm a collector because that's more of what I was interested in. I'm a collector and I'm trying to, get blanks for these locks or trying to refurbish stuff or whatever the case is. And I bought parts from the shop that I work at in the past and little things here and there. We've had very few people ever come in and ask for that kind of stuff. I mean, we sell blanks, we sell pins to, whatever. We won't sell the tools, but we'll sell everything else. I think it really depends where you are. If you just walking off the street and say, I want to buy locks to pick them, we're probably going to look at you a little funny. But if you just come in and buy a padlock and then eventually if you get to know the people and things like that, it's a little different. I will say that on the other side, that a lot of the Locksport community has found vulnerabilities and bypasses in things that is making other things more secure in a way. They're finding issues that the manufacturer hasn't found, and you see that with different things. So the 3D printed PSA keys, stuff like that. Like, I think that's really cool, but at the same time, I don't want that stuff getting into the wrong hands. I use bump keys on the bench when I have to, but I would never sell them to anybody. You have to be responsible in what you do. It's certainly, there's a lot of ethics and responsibility that come with any profession, but my job is to help people feel secure in their homes and their businesses. So there is definitely a balancing act.
Definitely. You know, from my perspective, I've always viewed Locksport, the Locksport community, as like looking at locks and keys, that sort of thing, as like puzzles almost.
Yep. That's
right.
Exactly how it is.
And it's a completely different perspective than what a, security professional or locksmith would look at that same lock, as. And I think that's kind of like I think they complement each other a lot in a lot of ways, as far as it's good to kind of look at it as a puzzle. And a lot of us, like now as a locksmith, I mean, well, maybe not necessarily you, but a lot of locksmiths, when they see a lock that they got to open, it's a task, right? That's associated with a dollar amount and time. And so, you're hurrying, just trying to get it done, where Locksport is like, how exactly is this made, and where are their vulnerabilities, and how can I attack this, and all these other fun things, right?
Sure. And when I got to rekey 12 locks and they don't have keys, I'm not going to sit, maybe I'll try to pick it, but I can also take the lock apart from the back. Like, I know how to do other things that I wouldn't have known if you're just focusing on the cylinder and the keys. But it is a puzzle, and trying to get it all back together and
yep.
Figuring out how did they design this, because if they made it, it's got to come apart somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the other interesting part to me with this, and so I've met quite a few people that got kind of introduced to locksmithing per se from the Locksport community, right? And I think it's a very great way to bring the thought process into locksmith. For example, okay, you're at someone's home and they want to make sure that door is secure, right? Well, since you, from being in the Locksport community, have had a lot of time to really think about, like, okay, how can we manipulate this lock, all this other stuff. It really gives you a advantage in a lot of ways, as far as like, okay, if I need to secure this door, how do I want to do it? What vulnerabilities do I want to make sure don't happen? With the lock to put on, all that other stuff. So I think it's one of the best avenues into the locksmithing community. Of course, there is the downside, right? Like someone without ethics wanting to do bad. There is that side of it. I don't think we should, completely just throw that off to the side. There is something there, but as the years have went on, as the Locksport community has grown, so many of our customers that I've met started off in the Locksport community, which I think is kind of cool. I mean, I talk about how there's not really a path to get into the locksmithing business, right? There's not like a national-wide apprentice program, but the Locksport community actually has a pretty decent path into locksmithing. So that's kind of neat.
And the way I got into this, where I work now, my mom was working for somebody and doing property management and stuff, and the owner, the person she worked for, knew that I was interested and said, if Jeff is ever interested in getting a job there, I'll put in a good word with Jeff, the owner, who I sort of knew from going in there. And, I know a lot of people that use them because they've been around for almost 60 years. They have a good reputation. So I had been in there and I sort of knew who he was, but I made the call one day and I still have the voicemail, that from 2017 when they first called me back or whatever. And, they gave me a chance, and it's something different every day, which is what I like. It's a small family-owned business, and even we are able to do some pretty big stuff locally that a lot of other companies don't want to do. So it's it gives you a lot of pride to drive by a place and be like, yeah, we do all their security, and I've cut keys for this place, and I've done work for this guy, and it's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff, Jeff. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but it is hard. You were born into the trade, so, and the guys that I work for also, their dad started it again. They grew up. They were cutting keys when they were 10 years old. Yeah. So, and they have other siblings that didn't go into the business, but it is one of those things. If you want to be an electrician, there's a clear-cut path. If you want to be a plumber, there's a path.
Yep.
In the IT stuff, I did a technical ed program in my last 2 years of high school. that was, geared to, okay, you're learning, these are some of the basic IT things, and then you can continue it in college because you got to have a degree to do that in most cases. You don't need to have a college degree to be in the trades. And in a lot of cases, my high school and many others, they're still not pushing the trades, but there's people that never went to college, even that I went to high school with, that are doing just fine. I have a friend who works for one of the cities. He's been there like 15 years, tried community college for a little bit, we got into automotive and stuff, but the government benefits and all that, I mean, you really can't beat that. And
sure,
obviously works very hard, but didn't have to go to college. But I think some of it helps, the other skills that aren't necessarily tied to the career. You wonder why you're studying it then, but then you sort of realize it one day, like, oh, that stuff actually is helpful. So
absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, you're still dealing with people, and you can't, unless you're in a, I call it where my one buddy works in like a closed door shop where people aren't coming in all day. So you can just, get things out like an assembly line. That's what most of my time is doing, is helping people and then cutting keys. It's like, you have to figure out what the problem is, and then you can, and that is a lot of it. It's like, okay, just tell me what you need, but you have to realize that, they don't know the terminology. They don't know the industry. Sometimes they don't even know what they're asking for. And that certainly makes it, I'm sure you deal with it on the phone. People don't always know what part there is. And I'm sure we drive our distributors crazy at times too.
So what would you say, so transitioning into being a locksmith now, like what are some, if for guys out there who want to pick up more business or make good connections in their community, do you have any like tips or tricks of what, some strategies that you've seen or that you guys use that maybe would be beneficial?
Most of it is just word of mouth. They used to sponsor a softball team or a boys baseball team locally, which doesn't exist anymore. I think for us, it's just longevity. We've been in the same location for 30 years, and they were in another location for 30 years before that. We're like the anchor of the shopping center where we're located. So they don't really have to advertise much because everybody, I've been coming here for 20, 30 years. I know you guys do it right and never have an issue kind of thing. There's people that focus on specific vertical markets, I guess, like, they want to get into every apartment building in the city. So they go to like, whatever the apartment association to market their kind of stuff. I'm not involved in that per se. It's just, okay, we're open. People are coming in.
Sure. Now, let's talk for a minute about like relationships with like local hardware stores in your area, as far as keys to be cut that aren't, that they don't have. Like
every day. I mean, it's every day. The store that I used to work at sends people to us. We're located behind a Home Depot, so we're getting, they send people to us for very stupid things sometimes, but I don't even think they have somebody that rekeys locks there anymore. Somebody was complaining, like, okay, we'll do it.
Okay.
There's a few local hardware stores, and they're always sending people to us.
So yeah, I think it's good, to become friendly. Like so many times, it's like it's easy to want to view like a hardware store as like competition because they also sell KW1s and SC1s.
Right, and they sell hardware too, but it's not the same hardware in most cases. A Quickset Smart Key or a Quickset 400 with a plastic spindle. So there is a difference on some things. You want 12 padlocks key to like, they're not going to have that on the shelf.
Exactly. Or at the same time, like if they need like a Mobella boat key or like a scooter key, those are like the high profit, good margin products that the locksmith can make a ton of money on. And not just, the KW1s or SC1s, right? I mean, you can essentially get those anywhere.
Right. But we do cut a lot of KW1s, SC1s, and, we get blanks in bulk and we go through them. I mean, I just cut 600 master padlock keys for a snowplow company. different, 3 different keys, 200 of each, cut and stamped, and then some other pre-cuts that we get from Blue Dog. And every year they order stuff because they do snow removal all around the city, and they give their employees keys, and it's repeat business because they know we can do it.
Yep. Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, Jeff, hey, thank you so much for coming on and kind of talking about your story. And honestly, thank you for being a locksmith. Thank you for transitioning from IT to Locksport to locksmithing.
I enjoy it. For sure.
And I also appreciate the business that you give us as well. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. You guys always come through. I've never had an issue. You have some unique products, and you always take care of your customers. And the giveaways don't hurt either. I use the pin kit almost every day, the A2 pin kit. It's nice to have an additional kit in the shop, so I use it all the time.
Good stuff. Yeah, great to hear. That's part of one of our things with the giveaway stuff that we give away. Like, we really want the stuff to be used and, good stuff, not just something that doesn't really matter. So great to hear it's being used. That's good stuff.
I forgot to put my Lock Boss hat on, though. But I
was
wearing it the other day.
Good. Awesome. Very cool, Jeff. Well, hey, and then hopefully, how would you feel about coming on live here after this video airs?
Depending on when, could probably do something. I can't do today, but
yes,
we could set something up.
Okay. Yes. What I'll do as soon as we have it in the schedule, we'll get you. We'll make sure we can get a Tuesday that works for both of us. It'd be fun to have you on.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you, and you may have answered it before, but did you go right into working for your dad after school, or did you do something else first?
Yeah. So, great question. So something that I think I've hit on a few times is, I worked for my dad for, my entire life. But when I turned, so I worked during the day, starting at 13. I worked during the day for him, and then I worked at a golf course at night picking up range balls, in the golf cart. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, I turned 15, and my dad was paying me $10 a day because he said that was all I was worth. So go figure, right? And I was like, well, Dad, minimum wage is like $5.15 an hour, and if you're not going to pay me $5.15, I'm going to go get another job. And he's like, see ya, right? And off I went. And one of my football coaches, worked at Burger King. And so I got a job at Burger King. And I worked there for, I can't remember exactly how long, year or two. And then I eventually was like, hey, Dad, man, can I come back, for minimum wage? And so he eventually had me come back. And it was a good lesson to work for someone during the day, other than him. Mm-hmm. And then turned 18. I actually did an internship. I thought I might want to be a pastor, and did that. Ended up not really liking didn't really want to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started at 19. I was like, I want to be a distributor, and went into that blind. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, you started it from. I remember seeing pictures of how you started, and you did you buy Aero Lock? Or do you sell their stuff?
Yes. Yep. So in 2008, yes, I did buy Aero Lock.
Okay.
Yep. Still own it.
Not ARROW, AERO.
No, AERO. Yes. Yeah, and that was really a funny thing. So I had through CLK, I was buying their products, and they always wanted you to call in to place an order, right? Not email a PO or whatever. So I called them up to put an order in, and they're like
the old Blue Dog having to fax everything.
Yeah,
I've heard some stories.
Yep. And so I called them up, and they were like, "So we'll fill this order, but after this order, we're done." Okay. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, we're going to go out of business." I'm like, "Why?" I was like, we sell a lot of your products. And they're like, "Well, it was a lawyer who owned it as an investment company, and he didn't even live he didn't live in Memphis. And they were losing money, I'm guessing. And I was like, man, I'd hate to see, it's an interesting product. I'd hate to see it, go out of business. I think there's still there's a need for it out there." And they put me in touch with the owner, and we ended up cutting a deal. and been doing it ever since. You know?
Really cool.
Good stuff, Jeff. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on, hanging out, talking about some different things. Like I said, I'm really happy you're a locksmith, and I know you're active in a lot of community or forums.
Well, I'm a member of ClearStar, which is invaluable. I'm a member of the Penn Ohio Locksmith Association, which is our local/regional association. And there's some Facebook groups and lock collecting, American Lock Collectors Association. They have shows. I haven't had them lately, but that's a really cool way to get to meet people and see their collections. And there's some amazing stuff out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've noticed, I've seen your posts over the years, and, you're always willing to help and people out. And that's really awesome.
I try to. There's some, what kind of key is this? And it's a Y11. Those posts get old, but still try to help them out.
Absolutely, Jeff. All right. Well, hey, thanks again. Take care, and we'll be talking soon.
Great. Appreciate it.